Hi all, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast. So we've got UFC Vegas 31 this weekend. We're back at the Apex, so we're back in the small cage. Something to bear in mind for bettors. 11 fight card, so slightly smaller than the more recent cards, which means I should get this pod done a bit quicker. It's not a great card. I don't like it from a betting perspective either. It's a tough card in my opinion. Last week on the pod we went on predictions 8 and 4. I said that I didn't think there was going to be many dogs that won. Didn't strike me as that type of card. I think I picked maybe 2 or 3 dogs. But like I said, it just wasn't a dog heavy card. I don't think I got any of the dogs right. The only 2 dogs that won were Gilbert Burns and Irene Aldana. And Irene Aldana, when I done the pod, was the favourite, and she only flipped to dog odds because she missed weights, and then the money started coming in on Kunitskaya. So, in essence, only one true dog won on that card in Gilbert Burns. So, a favourite heavy card, which normally means we're going to bounce back with a load of underdogs. I'll have a look as I go through. I haven't broken down in my head whether I feel there's a lot of live underdogs, but I do think it's a tough card for betting, so that normally implies that there should be some live dogs on this card. Just to remind everyone, premium services offered. I offer a weekly, monthly, 6-monthly, yearly membership packages. You can view the packages on prommmabetting.com. It's for pre-bets, and we also have a private Discord channel for live betting tips. Everything is tracked, guys. If you go to the website, again, prommmabetting.com, there's 3 icons on the homepage. One to betmma.tips, and there's 2 icons to betting.gs. Everything is tracked on there. Last week was a very, very slow week for live betting. I don't think we had one live bet. I haven't got the tracker in front of me. If we did have one, it was literally one, but I've got a feeling we didn't have any. Real quiet card on live betting last week, which is unusual. Normally we managed to get some live bets in on a few fights, but it was just one of them cards where all the favourites were winning. So it obviously doesn't help because they're already the favourite pre-bet wise, and if they're winning the fight, the odds are only going to get wider. So it just wasn't a good card for live betting. So normally the dogs bark on MMA. That's why it's so good for live betting. We're able to get such value live. So hopefully we'll be back to normal on the live betting front this week and be able to get in at least 2, 3, 4 bets, which I'd say 3 or 4 is normally our average. And pre-betting wise, I've got the one bet out with members at the moment. I'm considering something else at the moment, so maybe 2, but it's a tough card. I don't like it from a betting perspective, so I'm going light on it. But we'll break down as we always do from bottom to top. If you want to give us a follow on Twitter, it's at Pro MMA Betting. Website I've already said, prommmabetting.com, to look at the packages. Any questions about packages, etc., just hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are open. So if we dive into this card, as I've already said, we're back at the Apex, back at the small cage, no crowd. So factors to consider when you're a bettor. First fight is Rodrigo Nascimento taking on Alain Bordeaux. It's a heavyweight fight, so variance occurs on these heavyweight fights, but you obviously have to favour Rodrigo, and he is the favourite. He's minus 350, which for me is unplayable. I'm sure there are some people that are parlaying him, putting him in doubles, etc. Not really my style. I won't say I never play doubles, but generally they're not my style, and I especially don't want to put a heavyweight, especially a low-level heavyweight who's minus 350 in one. It's not really my style. I think it's tough to win long-term using legs like that in MMA at heavyweight, but this should be his fight to win. We saw Bordeaux make his UFC debut, got put away very quickly. I remember watching his fight against the Canadian chap whose name escapes me at the minute. I think it was the fight before his UFC debut, and there was a lot of spinning stuff, a lot of low percentage stuff, and it's MMA. Low percentage stuff kind of works a high percentage amount of the time, but he probably is just some low percentage spinning elbow or something, or bust here. The likelihood is Nascimento comes in and takes him down and either pounds him out or gets a submission. So if you're looking for value on this fight, in my opinion, you need to look at whether you like the over-under, which is set at 1.5. I don't really like betting under 1.5s. Got to be completely honest. I always prefer taking the over if I'm going to bet them. But I'm not overly inclined to play the over here because I think Bordeaux might be that bad. He's not UFC level. I can just see Rodrigo getting him down and getting a finish. And if you look at Nascimento inside the distance, it's a bit more. I'd rather play that than the money line. Minus 170, it's not too bad. The likelihood is that he does finish. You can decide whether it's submission or KO, but it's always high risk when you're trying to pick one of two outcomes in MMA. KO is sitting at plus 400. That's quite wide. Submission, even money. If there's any value, it's going to be on the KO because plus 400 does seem a bit wide. They're heavyweights, so even standing wouldn't shock me if Nascimento knocked him out. And I know he's got a couple of sub wins in the UFC, one in Contender Series and the other one against Deontay Mays, but he could just take him down and pound him out. And I think there's a bit of value there actually. I think on the KO plus 400 is quite interesting. So if anything, a flyer on that would be my play on that fight. But I'm picking Nascimento, but I wouldn't play the money line. I wouldn't put him in doubles personally. I think if you're looking for any value, I think the KO is actually of interest there. Next fight on the card, we move to Francisco Figueiredo taking on Malcolm Gordon. Figueiredo's minus 300 here, and like Nascimento, he's just unplayable, and he's actually more unplayable for me than Nascimento because I'm not entirely convinced that he wins this fight. He's the little brother of Davison Figueiredo, but he's definitely not on Davison's level. We saw him against Jerome Rivera, won the first 2 rounds, only with takedowns, dropped the 3rd round to Jerome, which isn't a great look. He doesn't have the physicality of his brother. He's definitely not on that level, but Malcolm Gordon isn't good. Seen him in the UFC twice. He's been stopped in the 1st round, and fair enough, he had solid opponents both times, but you look at his record, he's got 5 losses, 4 of them are by KO, 1's by submission, so he's been finished 5 times, 4 times by knockout at flyweight. And that Sue knockout was really bizarre the way he went down. He did pull off a decent win before his UFC debut against Yoni Sherbatov, and I remember watching his fight with, I think it was a James Mancini fight. I watched it. This was back before he made his debut against Albazi, and I'm sure he was struggling with Mancini. He was getting walked down, I'm sure, and struggling, and I think he might have even got hurt in that fight as well. So there's definitely issues with his chin. But look, I haven't pulled the trigger, but I've got to pick Malcolm Gordon here. As much as I hate to say that, I just think the line's too wide. I'm not sold on Figueiredo at all. Gordon is chinny, but Figueiredo doesn't seem to be a big puncher. He's definitely not on the level of his brother. It's flyweight, and I mean Gordon's a black belt in jiu-jitsu himself. I know everyone is nowadays, and you look at the Albazi fight, and it looks like a bit of a dojo black belt. But I've got to go with the odds, and minus 300 here just feels off. Like minus 200, I could probably stomach, and I'd still pick Figueiredo here, but that just seems a bit wide for me. At flyweight, Figueiredo's not particularly dominating. He might come out and just put Gordon away because, as I say, 5 finishes, 4 KOs. It's just not a good look at all. But when we're talking 75% implied probability, I just think that's too wide, and I think it should be, maybe 60-65%. So then we're talking minus 200 territory, even a bit lower than that. I just think it's too wide. But I haven't pulled the trigger because you need to be ballsy to lay some money here on Gordon. The other way to look at it is the under or fight doesn't go the distance because Gordon's been finishing every loss. But I just worry if you take that route, you're relying on a Figueiredo finish, because I don't know what. It's hard to gauge Gordon's finishing ability, and we did stop Sherbatov, but otherwise he hasn't fought anyone. He's got there's a couple of his most recent wins, 2 are Kimuras. If you're winning by Kimura, it's highly likely it's low level. Armbar as well. Again, it's just likely it's low level if you're winning by Kimuras and armbars. And Figueiredo, I don't think he's been. Let me just double check that. I think he actually has been put away. John Lineker, but it was in round 3. It was 10 years ago, but 10 years ago, John Lineker still was savage. So if you can go to round 3 with Lineker, even if it was 10 years ago, it's not a bad look. It suggests you're fairly durable. And then he's got a submission loss to Louis Nogueira, who's not a bad fighter. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. He's definitely, I would class him as a level above Malcolm Gordon. So it just puts me off taking the inside the distance, because it looks good on paper. They've both got a lot of finishes, but I just worry that you might be relying on Figueiredo getting the finish, and then you might as well, if you feel that way, you might as well look at a Figueiredo inside the distance prop. So I'm going to begrudgingly pick Gordon here, just purely based on the odds. I don't think he wins the fight, but when we're talking percentages and how many times out of 10 does he win this fight, I think the odds are off. So I am going to go with Gordon. I wonder what the line would be if this guy's name wasn't Figueiredo. You've got to think that's being baked into the price, or not. So Gordon for me, but it's what I'm not betting, and it's definitely not a confident pick, but it's a betting podcast, guys. As I always say, we look at the value. We generally go with who we feel presents the value, and for me here, I do think it's Gordon. Right, we move on to the next fight on the card. Let's just bring the fights up. Anderson dos Santos, Miles Johns. Just a tough one to bet, this one, in my opinion. Went in, done tape. I came away thinking Anderson dos Santos isn't great, but he's got that pressure style that Miles John doesn't like. He doesn't really like being pressured. He's in the small cage. I wouldn't be shocked if dos Santos caught him with something club and sub type, maybe like he did to Ricky Simone. Is Miles Johns going to be too cute on the feet? He does crack as well, Johns, if he lands that right hand. I wonder if he'll go to the wrestling, because dos Santos does have a good guillotine. We saw it in his last fight. He managed to get a submission with it, and I think he nearly caught Nad with it as well. So you've got to be careful if you're shooting with your head on the outside, if you are going for the takedown. So might just put enough doubt in Miles' mind to make him not wrestle and be content to stand. He's coming off that nice knockout win, but dos Santos is a dog. He's going to come in, he's going to bring it. But like I said, at the same time, he's just not great. But just a tough one for betting again for me. I don't think there's any value on Miles Johns' line. I don't want to be laying him at minus 180. Anderson dos Santos plus 140. I'd like the odds to be a bit wider, to be honest, to take a stab at dos Santos, but this is a betting podcast. Like I said in the last fight, I'm going to go where I think the value lies, and if anything, I'd rather bet dos Santos here at plus 140 than be looking at betting Miles Johns as a minus 170, minus 180 favourite. So for me, I'm going to go with dos Santos. I'd keep it small if you agree with my view on this fight, because dos Santos isn't great, but he's got that dog in him, he's got that grit in him, and it goes a long way in MMA. It goes such a long way. And I mean, dos Santos has been knocked out a fair few times in his career, but he's survived in the UFC so far. He went the distance with Nad. He went the distance with Andre Yall as well. So, his chin's held up in the UFC. As I say, he does have a few KO losses on his record, so it's not inconceivable here that Johns catches him with something. But I like the grit. He will come to fight. He'll put it on Johns. If he gets caught, he gets caught. If you're betting dogs, you're never going to have every box ticked, but he will at least come to fight for your money. But there is a speed differential. There's a technique differential. But from a betting perspective, I am going to pick dos Santos here to to pick up a gritty W. But I'd keep it small because he's not the type of fighter I'd really want to risk much money on because he's borderline UFC level. Next, we've got Khalid Taha taking on Sergei Morozov. So Khalid Taha is very good on the feet. He's got very heavy hands. His weakness has been getting taken down and losing fights that way, generally anyway. We saw it against Narimani in his debut, but that was up at 145. Next fight is back at 135. Took out Boston Salmon quickly. Then he beat Bruno Silva. It was changed to a no contest. It was 1-1 going into round 3. He won the first round. He had some trouble in round 2. He got taken down, got held down. So a bit of a repeat of the Narimani fight. And I remember taping Taha before he made his UFC debut, and I watched the fight with Otsuka, the Japanese guy, and pretty sure it was the grappling there that was his undoing. So the Bruno Silva fight did get overturned, and then he fought Parsons, who he lost the fight clearly, but he showed a lot of heart in that fight. He took some damage, kept firing, and again got taken down at times in that fight. So there's a clear weakness in his game. He's very strong on the feet. He's got power, and Morozov is another guy that's going to look to ground him. You go and do the tape on Morozov, and he's not really a stand-up guy. He's more about getting you to the floor. From the tape I looked at, his top control isn't great. There's going to be openings for Taha to get back to his feet. He spends a lot of time in the rear waistlock position, so I can see a lot of the fight plan out there, and it being a case of, can Taha get back to both feet? Can he break the grip and turn in? Can you maybe force a referee separation? And the other thing to worry about here from Morozov's point of view is just the way fights are scored now. And, he could have 4 minutes of control against the fence, have that rear waistlock, and just for that 1 minute where they're separated, if Taha lands a couple of decent shots, it'll probably sway around towards Taha. So, if you're looking at betting Sergei, that would be my worry. Is he going to have enough control? Because he's not the type that just blankets you once he gets you down. People do tend to get up to their feet, and I know Taha, that has been an issue for him, but I don't expect Sergei just to be able to hold him down and flatten him out for 3 rounds. So that's where my reservations would come. But like I just said, if you're looking at betting a dog, you're not going to have every box ticked. So on the feet, if you'd said to me it's going to play out on the feet for 3 rounds, you'd definitely have to favour Taha, and you'd probably line him a bit wider. But it's his MMA, and the X factor is if Sergei can get the wrestling going. He had a very tough debut against Umar Nurmagomedov, who I'm really looking forward to seeing again because he looked very good in that fight. I don't think that was a case of Sergei not being very good. I think that was a case of Umar looking like a great talent. So I'm very intrigued to see him again. So again, I think the value probably lies with the underdog here, just because Taha is one-dimensional. There is a path to victory against him, and it is taking him down and grinding him out. And Bruno Silva kept him down for a round. Bruno Silva's a 125er. So I'm going to go Sergei. I'm not overly confident on this one either because, like I said, he's not got the best top control. His stand-up isn't great at Taha. I'd be very surprised if Taha doesn't show himself to be the better striker here. But as I say, we've got to look at the value, and plus 135, plus 140. He was sitting around, I think, plus 150 or so earlier in the week. So again, third straight dog in a row, I think that is on call in here. So I'm going to go with Sergei just to grind out enough top control to nick the victory. But the chance of a finish is obviously high with Taha. He's got the power on the feet. And if the fight does play out on the feet mainly, it's difficult to see Sergei winning. But from the weaknesses we've seen from Taha in the UFC, there's something for Sergei to exploit here. So I'm going to go with the underdog again on this fight. Next fight, we've got Amanda Lemos taking on Montserrat Ruiz. So they haven't done Ruiz any favours here. She's coming off the big underdog victory against Cheyenne Byers. And they're chucking her in with Lemos, who's proven to be a bit of a monster down at 115. Women's MMA minus 500. What can go wrong? But it is hard on paper to see Ruiz winning here because I just can't see her winning on the feet. Her go-to is the head and arm throw, and it worked against Bays, but I don't think it's going to work against Lemos. Lemos is physically stronger. She's an ex-135er. I think if she goes for that on Lemos, there's a higher chance that she ends up flat on her belly with Lemos on top of her, pounding her or looking for a rear naked choke. But I think Ruiz is going to go for it. It's her go-to move. She goes to it all the time, and she's coming off a win because of it in the UFC. So I've no doubt she's going to go for it. People probably throwing Lemos in parlays. It's women's MMA. To win long-term betting minus 500s in women's MMA, it's probably impossible because they will shit the bed. But I don't think Amanda's going to. I've got to, as wide as it is, I've got to pick her to win. But in terms of value, you've got to be looking at the under. To be honest, I did have a little look at the props, and I just didn't really like it because I think the decision it wasn't as wide as I thought it was going to be. I think it was only like plus 115 or something. The KO is kind of just below plus 200. If anything, maybe the submission at plus 500 for Amanda. She did get a submission in. Again, was it Granger she submitted? I haven't got a record in front of me at the moment. I think it was Granger she submitted. So, I wouldn't be surprised if, like as I said, Ruiz ends up on the bottom and she might pound away or she might take the submission. So, if anything, maybe a flyer on the submission win for Lemos there. KO plus 200. Women's MMA. I don't think, I know she's coming off that demolition job, but she did drop Mizuki as well. But Ruiz is going to be a tough Mexican. I'd rather take a flyer on the submission win. It's the only thing I can really find there. The over-under, it's still women's MMA. Lemos is a beast though, but no strong feelings particularly on the over-under inside the distance. But the submission line's interesting. If you're getting like plus 500 or so, I'd definitely take that over the KO personally. For a flyer, tiny bit. Next fight on the card, we've got Daniel Rodriguez taking on Preston Parsons. Preston's coming in here on short notice, 9-2 record. All these wins are by submission. Just quickly remind myself. Let's see if he's been past round 2. I think it was his last fight. He won in round 2. I watched it yesterday or the day before. Round one. Yeah. So this is what I don't like. I don't like it when you're betting a favourite. I don't like it. He's a big underdog here, but he's only been past round 1 once in his career, which was his last fight, and he looked okay in it, to be honest. But he was controlling the fight though, so it doesn't really give you a proper perspective on how he's going to look in 3 rounds. But yeah, his longest fight is 255 of round 2, so he's taken this on short notice, but that fight was only a month or so ago, so you've got to imagine he's still in shape. But it's a big step up in competition for him here. His stand-up looked okay from the couple of fights that I watched, but Daniel Rodriguez is going to be a different level to the guys he's faced. He's going to want to try and get Daniel down. Daniel can be taken down. Tim Means took him down. Mike Perry took him down. But he did pop up pretty quickly, I think, from 2 of the 3 takedowns from the 2 fighters I just mentioned. And he is a problem on the feet. Fights out of that southpaw stance. He's got a good left hand. I think he's going to win this fight. He's been bet up. I think last time I looked, let's have a quick look now, he was about minus 350. So people have been betting him, probably putting him in doubles, as everyone does. Minus 335 I'm seeing. Over-unders set at 1.5. As I said earlier, I don't like betting under 1.5. It just never goes well for me. It's such a sweat, and it seems like such a small time frame to win. I tend to avoid them. I prefer looking at the over, and I did see this price when I'd done the tape, and I just could see him eating some damage on the feet, and I don't know what his durability is like. Rod can crack. We've seen him put away guys in the UFC. We've seen some guys show insane durability against him, and Parsons, he hasn't ticked these boxes for me. So to bet the over here, I feel it's just guesswork, especially at that price. It's minus money now, minus 135. I think it was even money, so the money's coming on the over. But I don't know. I don't know how Preston's going to. If he could get a takedown and ride out some top time, then great for the over bet. But if he is stuck on the feet, it's going to be sweaty because I do feel he's outgunned on the feet, and we just don't know about his durability. So the pass fight for me completely, really. Money line, there's just minus 335 in MMA. I don't like betting it unless I feel like it's a complete lock. And there are some unknowns here with Preston, and he's got a decent ground game. Let's just have a look at the props quickly. I don't know what the KO etc. is sitting at. So Rodriguez, it's minus money. I'm not interested generally in minus money on props. So pass fight for me, but I've got to go with Rodriguez here. I think he's going to be too much on the feet, but I don't think there's any value on the money line, so I wouldn't personally touch it. Right, we move to, it's a 5-fight main card, so yeah, we're on to the main card now. That was the last preliminary fight. So the first fight on the main card is a good one. Billy Quarantillo taking on Gabriel Benitez. So Billy's coming off a loss to Gavin Tucker. When you watch that fight back, or even when you saw it live, you might remember, but it was Billy that actually slowed down in that fight. He came into the fight with everyone thinking that was going to be possibly his path, in Gavin slowing down, like we did see that time against Rick Glenn, but actually worked the other way here, and it was mainly because of Tucker's knees. He went to the knees a lot in the clinch. I think he landed like a nice step in there a couple of times as well. And it seemed to slow Billy down. I mean, Billy kept coming forward as he does. He's like a zombie in there. He's one of them pressure fighters that keeps coming, that is very difficult to deal with. But Tucker mixed in the takedowns as well to relieve the pressure. He's a good grappler. He's a Gracie black belt. So the mixing of the two worked very well for him. He was outstriking Billy as well. Billy was struggling with the speed. He's very easy to hit, and his stand-ups, it's not great. He's one of them that, as I said, he will keep coming forward. He'll be in your face. He's hard to deal with if you don't know how to deal with him. But his stand-up isn't great. He throws, it looks like a nasty overhand right that he throws, but he's not a massive puncher. He's more of an accumulation guy that will just wear you down. And, if you start to slow down, he will be all over you like a rash. And, I mean, he was well matched, let's be honest. He's on the Contender Series, he fought Kamula Kirk, who he had problems with in round one with the grappling, but Kirk's cardio just went off a cliff, and he just walked him down and stopped him in the second round. And then Jacob Kilburn, he grappled, but I mean, Jacob just isn't UFC material. And then they gave him Spike and Kyle, both guys that start strong, but they always slow down in their fights. And it's like perfect matchmaking for a guy like Billy. Survive round one and then take over, and it's exactly what he'd done. But then he took a step up in competition against Gavin Tucker, and he came unstuck and lost a pretty comprehensive decision. Gabriel Benitez is, as we know, a very good striker. He fights out of a southpaw stance. The commentators are going to tell you this, but Javier Mendez said that he's the hardest kicker he's ever held pads for. You're going to hear it on Saturday, I guarantee it. And, you can see when you watch his fights, the guy kicks like a mule. He's got solid hands as well. He definitely would have preferred the bigger cage here, Benitez, because of the style of Billy. If you really crowd him, you can back him up to the fence. And we have seen Benitez knocked out a couple of times. We saw Andre Fili knock him out a few years back. We saw Sadiq Yusuf knock him out after he hurt Sadiq. So he can be cracked. But like I said, Billy's not, I know he got that nasty knockout on Carl Nelson, but he had a bit of a half zombie in front of him in Carl. He was exhausted. So, I don't think he's this massive puncher. I think, as I said, if you slow down, he will be all over you. And he's the type that, I know the Carl one was a one punch, but generally it'd be like an accumulation type stoppage. So it's going to be interesting how Benitez plays this, because I don't think he goes to the clinch like Tucker. I don't think he will go to the clinch like Tucker did and work the knees. but he does have a nasty stepping knee, which he actually knocked Justin Jones out with in his last, well, not knocked him out, but TKO'd him with in his last fight. So that's going to be there for him in the southpaw stance versus the orthodox stance. He's definitely going to be spraying Billy with kicks to the body. So is Billy going to slow down again from the accumulation of body shots? That's interesting, an interesting thing to look out for, because he definitely did slow down due to that against Tucker. Benitez is the better technical striker. He can be taken down, but he's got solid get-ups. But I mean, he does tend to kind of leave his back when getting back to his feet. But I'd be surprised if Billy can come in here and wrestle and grapple his way to a victory. I don't think he's going to get Benitez down easily, and I think if he does, I think Benitez will get back to his feet. I think the most realistic path to victory for him is if he can just wear Benitez down. But Benitez has always shown solid cardio. We've seen him in some high-paced fight. The Barzola fight comes to mind, and his cardio held up fine. So, I don't think Benitez is going to slow down. I think Billy will have to try the grappling path to see if he can have any success that way, because I think that's probably his best path to victory. If he is stuck on the feet, I think he needs to land a bomb, or he's going to get beaten up. And money has come in the last few days on Billy, actually. The line on Benitez has come down now to about -160. So I'm going to go Benitez here. He's the better technical striker. He's a powerful kicker. He's got the southpaw stance here against the orthodox stance. And he's got very good cardio. And Billy relies on guys slowing down. If you watch the UFC run, and I imagine on the regional scene, that's why he was so successful, because someone like Billy's just tough to deal with on the regional scene, because people just aren't used to that kind of pressure that he puts on you. But I think against Benitez, he's going to eat a lot of shots, and Benitez KO wouldn't shock me here. But I'm going with Benitez. But look for Benitez to possibly slow down. I don't think he will, but if there is any glimmer that he's starting to slow down, Billy's going to be all over him. But I definitely expect round one to be tough for Billy, and I think he's going to need Gabriel to slow down to grab the victory here. So I will go with Benitez, but it's never fun betting against someone like Billy unless they're completely out-skilled. Like I said, Gabriel can be backed up to the fence, because these pressure gritty fighters in MMA are a pain in the arse. But I am going to go with skill over will here, and I will go with Gabriel Benitez. Next fights, we've got 4 fights left. Only a 5-fight main card. We've got Rodolfo Vieira against Dustin Stolzfus. I put a tweet out a couple of days ago, I think you're mad if you're betting Vieira in the -250 range here. Look, he's a fantastic grappler, we know that. He's a physical specimen, but the guy's got no gas tank, and Dustin isn't fluffy. I don't think he's going to be able to do what Fluffy did. Fluffy's got decent stand-up, one of them gritty guys, really good cardio. Dustin's kind of slowed down in his last fight. So I think Rodolfo, if he doesn't get the submission in round one, I think he will be able to just kind of grind his way to a decision victory. But you just can't bet a guy like this at -250, guys. He's a gasser. I hope he wins, and I hope he wins impressively, to be honest, because I want the opportunity to fade him again, because there's no way in a high-paced fight where he can't get a quick win that he's not going to gas. The size of the guy is ridiculous. Wouldn't be surprised if he has to move up to light heavyweight at one point. I mean, the cut can't be helping his cardio. To go with the fact that he's built like a Adonis, it's just nuts. So I'm going to live bet it. If Dustin can survive round one, and Rodolfo, he's got to make him work though to gas. If he just gets an easy takedown and maintains top control, Vieira will be able to do that for 3 rounds. He's got to make him work. So I'm just going to save that one for live bet. But I'm picking Dustin just because I just can't pick Rodolfo Vieira at -250, even though I think he does win this fight, and I think it's a good fight for him stylistically. I'm not picking him. I'm not picking him as a -250 favourite. I'm not doing it. There's no way betting Rodolfo Vieira long term as a -250 favourite is going to be profitable. He will wet the bed again. That cardio's, we've already seen it happen, but it's an accident waiting to happen. Next, we've got probably, for me, the best fight on the card. We've got Gamrot taking on Jeremy Stephens. So Stephens returning to 155. I've got to say, I think Jeremy Stephens is probably on the way out. I know he's had tough fights. People are going to say, yeah, but look who he's fought. He's fought Jose Aldo. He's fought Calvin Kattar. He's fought Yair Rodriguez. And yeah, they are all tough fights he's had. But, he has lost his last 4 fights in a row. And I know he took round 3 against Zabit. I know he took round 3 against Yair. I know he took round 1 against Calvin. But he's taken damage in all them fights as well at the end of the day. Let's remember that. Aldo stopped him. I guess Zabit wasn't particularly, but Yair Rodriguez, he took a lot of damage. I noticed to the body he was hurt, and then he's coming off a nasty KO loss. It's going to catch up with you. There's no way it doesn't. And he's 35 years of age now. I think going back to lightweight's a good move for him. Clearly, it seems like something was affecting him. His body was a bit weak at 145, and he's had nearly 50 fights. He's on the wrong side of his MMA career. He's definitely on the slide. You can argue what you want. There's no way the amount of fights he's had, the damage he's taken, it's going to catch up with you. Now, it's quite interesting this fight because Gamrot is known as a decision machine. KSW, most of his fights will go to a decision. Let's have a quick look. So he's 18-1. I'm just looking at his finishes. So he's got 8 decisions from those 18 wins. But I think a lot of them were fairly recently. Well, either way, he's not known for being a finisher. He's not this huge puncher. But then he comes in and he stops Scott Holtzman. Now, you can argue Holtzman's up there in age. He was coming off a bad loss to Dariush where he got knocked out. So, you can argue that maybe Dariush took his chin. But it was still impressive that he put Holtzman away. Made his debut against Garam Kutalaze, who I'm really intrigued to see again because Garam looks really good in that fight. He deservedly won. And he looked like a skilled competitor. Gamrot, he was a big favourite, like minus 300, I think he was, maybe even wider than that. He was expected to come in and roll, but he was unlucky in the sense that he was given a high level opponent who no one really saw that coming. I think they all thought Garam was going to be, an easy debut for Gamrot, but it proved far from the case, and I think that was more to give a round of applause to Garam because he's actually looks like a solid prospect. But he bounced back, got the good win over Scott Holtzman. So this is an interesting fight. He's back at 155. We know how Jeremy is. He's going to bring the heat. How does Gamrot approach this fight? Normally he will strike and mix in his wrestling. And his takedowns looked good to me. Against Garam showed some real solid takedown defence and some scrambling ability. So I do understand why people would take Stephens here because he's a dog. He's going to fight for your money. I mean, it certainly feels like dog or pass at the line. Gamrot's sitting at like minus 220. But this is one of those instances where I am going to go with my gut. And even though I feel like the value is probably with Stephens, I'm still going to pick Gamrot here just because I feel Stephens is on the slide and on the way out. Gamrot's in his prime. He switched things up as well. He done his last camp at ATT. I think that was the first time he's done a camp at ATT for the Holtzman fight. I'm sure he's back there again for the Stephens fight. He's the younger guy, the fresher guy. He hasn't taken any damage really. Stephens has. So I don't think he's going to stop Stephens. And this is where it does get interesting, is when you start looking at the prop prices, because I feel like Gamrot's getting overrated for stopping Holtzman. Let's just bring up the props. Look where we're at on these. So the over is set at like even money, which surprises me, to be honest. I honestly thought we was going to be looking at closer to minus 200, but I guess people are looking at Stephens has been stopped in his last few fights. Gamrot's coming off the KO win. I think that's where it's coming from. But honestly, I think this fight goes the distance more often than not. And then if you look at Gamrot decision, Gamrot wins by decision is plus 225, plus 200 kind of area. I think that's where the value is on this fight, the over, and looking at Gamrot decision in all honesty. And Gamrot isn't. I don't have him in my head as a finisher. If he comes out and just puts Stevens away, then maybe I need to revise that, and we have to accept the guy's stepped his game up basically since the KSW game days. But to suddenly start putting people away on this level when you weren't doing it in KSW would be, you'd have to just put your hands up and say respect. But Stevens, the Calvin loss, you just don't know what kind of wear and tear he's going to take from that. But it was a nasty, nasty elbow he took. It probably would have stopped most people. And though it was the body where he was getting hurt. And the same with Aldo, the KO was from a body punch. So 155, expect him to be a bit more durable to the body. And why I am saying the concern is he is getting up there in age and the durability is waning. But still, I'm still not buying Gamrot some big finisher. So for me, for the value on this fight, you need to look at the over and Gamrot decision, in my opinion. And I'm still going to pick Gamrot, even though on the money line I don't think there's any value. I'm sticking with my gut on this one, and I just think he's going to win this fight. I think Stevens is the wrong side, and that is the concern when if you bet the over or decision is, has his durability waned? Has he got much left? And that's why we're getting the price at the end of the day. So next fight, we've got co-main event. Odd fight, this one. Marion Reneau taking on Miesha Tate. So Marion Reneau, this is a retirement fight. She's 44 years of age, but she's been very active and she's been competitive with good girls in recent fights. Miesha Tate is coming back from a 5-year layoff. That's 5 years. She's had 2 kids in that time. I don't know what her reasoning was for walking away from the sport. I can't remember. I don't know if she felt burnt out. I don't know if she wanted to have kids. I can't remember. I did go back and watch her last fight, which was against Raquel Pennington. It's not really going to tell me a great deal because I can remember Miesha's going pretty well. Saw a lot of her fights, but I just thought I'd have a look at it because I do remember having a feeling that she was looking a little bit shot in the fight. Now, I don't know whether shot's the right word or maybe just burnt out is maybe the better phrase, or just flat. I don't know, but she's nearly 35 years of age herself. Guys, I've been watching combat sports for too long to fall for this. I'm coming back better than ever. Historically, it's extremely few and far between that athletes come back from a 5-year layoff, especially at this age. And bear in mind, she's had 2 kids as well and look better than ever. I just don't see it. There's maybe she's got some kind of competitive drive back. She was working for One. I don't know whether that's all fallen apart. Is this a money grab for her? Does she need the money? I don't know. I haven't listened to interviews and whatnot. I'm sure she wouldn't say anyway, but it's just not a good sign. And I think she's going to come unstuck. I think the game's moved on. And it is women's MMA, so we are talking here. This is a bit more of an unknown because women's MMA hasn't been around for so long. So we don't have as many examples of athletes returning from long layoffs in women's MMA as we do in men's combat sports, boxing. See, men's MMA has been around a lot longer. But she has got Marion Reneau, who is 44 and who is retiring, and we know retirement fights don't tend to go great either. So this is a funny one. How's Miesha going to look? From looking at the Raquel fight, and Marion fought Raquel fairly recently. Marion looked pretty good against Raquel early on. She took round 1 off her, but she just couldn't live with the pace and slowed down. And Miesha Tate, it was kind of a similar fight. Miesha Tate slowed down in that fight as well. She was trying to think. I think she did win round 1, but then Raquel took over. And basically Marion doesn't have great takedown defense. and she's not great off her back. That's always been her weakness. And Miesha Tate is a very good grappler, decent wrestling. What I took from the Raquel fight was Miesha's shots from the outside looked terrible. I didn't go back any further. I can't remember if that's a constant theme with her and her wrestling, that her shots on the outside are terrible. But against Raquel, she basically needed the fence to come anywhere near a takedown. And Marion is actually fairly solid on the fence. She's very strong physically, and her takedown defense is definitely better on the fence than it is in open space. So on the feet, Marion's got the advantage. She does crack. You know, you go and watch her fight with Kunitskaya. Kunitskaya always seems to look a bit of a mess after her fights, but she was fine, I think, after round 2, and in round 3, Marion Reneau just made a mess of her. She hurt Sarah McMahon, which ended up leading to her getting the submission over McMahon. She does crack. You know, how much does Miesha want this? She was always very tough, Miesha, but is her heart really in it? You know, in my head, I've just got this vision of Marion cracking her on the feet a few times and Miesha like turning away, and that would be very un-Miesha like, because she was always game as hell. But you know, trying to, you know, we saw it last week with Conor, and Conor's nowhere near this kind of level of possible reduced athlete like Miesha. But just when you haven't got it anymore, you haven't got it anymore, and you know, it's like you're trying to reclaim past glories. And Miesha, you know, won the title. I'd be amazed, absolutely amazed, if she won it again. It would be a phenomenal story. But I just can't see it. Just a layoff. It's not like she's young either for a competitive athlete. And she's coming straight back in here against, you know, Marion Reneau's not an easy fight. She's tough. She's gritty. Yeah, she takedown defense ain't great. And, you know, if she gets her down, she probably will keep her down for the round. But Marion's been fighting regularly. She's, you know, you wouldn't think she's 44 when you watch her fights. If I didn't tell you her age when you watched her fights, you would no way think she's 44. So, and I'm surprised Miesha's the favourite here. Look, I've got no problem if it was more like a pick-em, but just with the inactivity, I don't think Miesha should be the favourite. So I'm going to pick Marion here as the underdog, like plus 125. I don't agree with that line, but there's a lot of unknowns here. There are a lot of unknowns, but I'm going to start with Marion Reneau. Main event, do you know what? I don't think this is going to be a great fight, but I think it will be a very one-sided fight. Islam Makhachev taking on Thiago Moises. Moises is an improving fighter. He's always struggled on the feet when he's being pressured. It's something he's definitely worked on. He is improving in that area, but against Islam Makhachev, it's not really going to come into play. I think Islam's mainly going to grapple. I think we're going to see him take the Dariush approach here, and I just think he's going to grind him out for 5 rounds rather. Not sure he gets a finish. Thiago Moises is tough. You know, he's a good grappler himself. Just seeing if he's ever been finished, Moises. He's never been finished. So, I mean, Makhachev here, the target for him here is to get a finish. That's what his goal has to be, is to finish a fight. I don't think it's going to be looked upon greatly if he just goes out and wins a 50-45, just controlling him, a bit of a boring fight. You know, he needs to go for the finish here. There's obviously no value on the money line. It's preposterous, minus 700 kind of territory. Let's have a quick look at the props. Over, so the over's set at 4.5 basically, minus 140. What is the decision win? Wins by decision. It's like even money. Not great over 5 rounds. You know, I like plus number on my props, and you know, you've got to sweat that for 5 rounds. But I do think decision is the most likely outcome. I think he'll do well to finish Moises, but it's definitely got to be the objective for Islam. He's got to try and go for the finish here, but I think it's going to be tough going. So I'll go with him by decision. If anyone's betting Moises, I can't blame you. Plus 500, but you know, we have seen Islam put away before, so. You know, I can't fault you, but I just see an Islam win here. The guy looks a huge problem in the division, but I just hope he can make it exciting, because it's not going to go down well with UFC brass if he just goes out there and wins a boring, lopsided 50-45 where he doesn't do much. So hopefully it's going to be an exciting fight. So that wraps up the card, guys. Good luck with your bets. Like I said, it's a tough one for betting this one. I think I've picked fair few dogs, but none of them where I feel strongly about, overly confident about. It's a tough one for betting, so good luck. Hope you can all win some money. If anyone wants to jump on the service, prommmabetting.com for the packages. We'll have live betting this Saturday for the whole card. Live betting will be available for all 11 fights. And like I said, we've got one bet out with members. I might send another one out. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to have a little think about it. But most of the members are with us for the year. Need to take a long-term view when you're signing up for the betting service, because we could have a rough week, could have a rough couple of weeks, but long-term we win money. Members that have been with me for over 3 years now, if they've taken every bet we've had, pre-bet and live bet, if you bet £100 per unit, you'd be up over 28 grand. So everything tracked, like I said earlier. So if you're interested in membership, feel free to drop me a DM. And I'll be back next week. I'll try and get back. I said I was going to do it on Monday. I'll try and do the next card on Monday coming, so we get it out nice and early. And good luck, everyone.